Hey everyone, this is Blake Murphy. I am currently working for ACES Biology, and this is going to be a little bit of supplemental material for you on Exam 1 review day. So, this is going to help you review for Exam 1, but it's also going to help you with the finals. So, I'm hoping this kind of narrows it down on what you need to study and just makes it a little more manageable. But I also want to say that you should review the actual materials from your professor, all that lecture and good stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. So what we're first going to talk about here is what is life. That's going to be your first lecture of the course. So you're going to want to focus on the characteristics of life, their organization, their response to stimuli, growth and development, regulation, homeostasis, energy processing, reproduction, and adaptation. Those are going to be some of your characteristics of life. So keep that in mind. There we go. So next you're going to want to focus on the scientific method. That's going to be a pretty easy one for most people, I think. You're going to want to focus on what good science is, so just the scientific method. We've all seen it quite a few times from high school and that sort of thing. Questions that I know are often on the test is the difference between variables and questions related to that. So, for example, like, in this experiment, what is the control variable, or is this the control variable, or whatever, something like that. So you're going to want to know the difference between those two. Taxonomy. This is one that I see a lot of people struggle with. That's going to be mainly focusing on this image over here. You're going to want to start with the domain, which is going to be eukaryotes versus prokaryotes, that kind of sort of thing. Kingdom, which will be like Animalia, that's pretty diverse. And then phylum. Phylum isn't usually a question in tests from what I know, but sometimes it is. Like Dr. McKenzie used to have a couple questions kind of where he might use phylum. Class, order, family, genus, species. Genus and species are where I'm going to definitely say you'll see at least one question. So you're going to want to focus on that kind of area down here. And just know the definition for the defining and classifying organisms and that sort of stuff. So definitely spend at least couple minutes on that. Speciation, that is going to be the process where evolution creates the changes, and speciation is the result of that process. So kind of know the start to finish for that particular lecture. And then for the chemistry of life, that's going to be the lecture after that. These all go in order of lecture. Some of your professors may do it differently, but all of them will cover these topics at some point. Chemistry of life, I would say, is probably, if not the hardest, one of the hardest lectures and pieces of content in this course. So I would say probably spend a good portion of your time studying this for Exam 1 and Exam 4, which will be like your final. You're going to want to definitely touch on this a little bit more, because I see a lot of people miss questions on that and come in asking me about this. Admittedly, this isn't my strong suit either. I'm more of a biology kind of guy. And medical science type stuff, but you're going to want to focus on the water aspect of the chemistry of life from at least Chemistry of Life Lecture 1. So you're going to want to review polarity, hydrogen bonds, adhesion and cohesion. All those things will be on the test for Exam 1, and probably a couple of them will be on the final exam. Chemistry of Life 2. So this is going to be kind of the progression of molecules, atoms to molecules, and then to macromolecules. So you're going to see molecules be like water. They're going to be made of 3 atoms kind of thing, like 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. And then your macromolecules are going to be like your carbohydrates, which are going to be made up of a bunch of different carbons and hydrogen, a bunch of different stuff. So 4 main groups, you're going to talk about carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So those are going to be kind of your building blocks for the chemistry of life. Your cell membranes, you're going to be mostly focused on the phospholipid bilayer for this lecture. And you're going to want to remember that it is semi-permeable, and then that it has a hydrophobic head and a hydrophilic tail and a hydrophilic head. So hydrophilic, remember, philic means to love something. So it loves water, And hydrophobic means to fear water. So those tails are hiding from the water. So inside the cell, intracellular, that is going to be the interior, which is wet, kind of, more or less. And then the outside is also going to be wet. So these tails are hiding from that wet environment. So keep that in mind. Energy. In our body, chemical energy is stored as sugars and fats, but it's going to be stored as sugars and fat. There's going to be chemical reactions that release it as ATP, and that's what allows us to do work. So think of work not as in like say you're working your yard, but work means the ability to do something, the ability to like move and do something. Your chemical reactions to do that are going to be cellular respiration, but we'll get to that in a little bit, in a different video. So photosynthesis, I see a lot of people come in. You're going to want to know the more complex version of this for exam 1. For exam 2, you really just need to know this formula and how it happens. It's going to be a lot more basic kind of questions. I actually hear that exam 4 tends to be one of the easier tests of the semester. I don't know if it's the easiest per se, but yeah, so know that these two are coming in. So you got CO2 and water coming in, and then that's creating sugar and oxygen as the byproducts. So cellular respiration, totally pretty much the exact opposite, but you're going to have sugar and oxygen coming in, broken down by enzymes to release some carbon dioxide, some water, ATP, and heat. So you're going to want to know this process in a lot more detail for exam 1. For exam 4, you're probably going to be okay knowing just the basics. So DNA, you're going to want to know quite a bit of at least the very basic stuff here, like the base pairings, cytosine, thymine, adenine, guanine. You're going to want to know how they pair up, and you're going to want to know that is the smallest unit of like heredity is genes kind of thing. So keep that in mind as you review. And then DNA protein synthesis. This is going to be the process by which DNA goes to RNA, goes to proteins. So DNA to RNA is called transcription. This will definitely be an exam question on exam 1. Exam 4 kind of varies a lot more, so it's hard for me to narrow it down for you. But mRNA, which stands for messenger RNA, is going to become part of translation, so you're going to take that RNA to proteins. RNA is kind of just a sort of copy and paste of the DNA sequence, like a little tiny snippet of it. So if you think of this as like a big page, like a book, this is like a page of that book, which gets translated into, say, like audio format or something like that. But hopefully that example makes sense to some people. But anyways, we'll move on. And that's the end of exam review 1. I hope you all do well. If you have any questions, just let me know.